Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 28th of September. And how does the song go? What a difference a day makes. Yeah, we can see it on a daily. The white peaking back up. It lasted this over here. Not too problematic in this particular case because immediately we had the NBI magenta and yellow still riding well above 33, and they are right now as well. So no change from that standpoint. The difference here is the rise of the blue as well. In a rollover in this particular case, you tend to get more of a drawdown setup within that. Still have green riding above cyan in this particular case. The reversal of short-term buyers, I mean, they were already getting extended in this particular case, and so that led to a little bit of softness within this. And we kind of talked about that potential for sideways move even within this reading, but also recognizing the dip below the red line here, which is those little magenta histograms on the extreme, meant that, we had to pull back to revisit at this low back at 42.90. Right at 44 right now. A little bit of pre-market selling, and that's because things are falling apart a little bit quicker than some realized that they would, and we can see the reasons why. NASDAQ, what a divergence from the S&P here. Far lower MBI readings, but much more exacerbated in the move and likely to test that low much quicker. Unless obviously something steps in, but and again, the day isn't over, so these are just the preliminaries, but that's ugly because below 50% with MBI white, particularly if it takes out the peak here of the magenta, suggests a move to 0%, and for the NASDAQ, that's down at 14.4. Still not that big a deal when you consider the amount of rise. I mean, that just takes you back to July values. What would happen from that, though, is probably the escalation, which would be interesting to see. Some of the reasons, well, we've talked about this as interest rates, market-wise, are rising despite what the Fed wants to do and for legitimate justifications. Eurozone, looking to be a disaster coming to winter with energy crises and the inability of their move towards total green to be sufficient to supply the needs. And that's going to have impacts. Also, China creating its own set of problems by just shutting down production in various places by limiting their ability to use electricity. Also going to have supply limitations, and boom, oil skyrocketing. Not a surprise. This is what we expected because you're going to start to see that at the pump. That will express itself in everything, and this is how you end up with stagflation. It's a perfect recipe for it. Not a surprise within the early sell-off here. Bitcoin taking a little bit of a beating. Talk about easy to follow setups here. We've had the short turnaround buy, middle of yesterday, beautiful sell signal came in, still within that. No shock there because, again, dip below the red line, the little magenta histograms there suggest a callback for the zero, not to mention the spike of white. And it's been leading pretty much this whole dip point coming through right here. So wouldn't be surprised to see some more downside pressure in that. From an intraday standpoint, this is the 50K. I talked about this on our Skype chat. We started to see the potential for an early rollover. We had the spike move to the peak there, and as it started to fade it, we were in weak configurations and worse than usual because a lot of times you expect to see the white dip below first and then come back above red. Here, in this case, the red completely dipped and we crossed above the blue in that. So that put a sell signal in. I mentioned it at the beginning of the day, and literally, though we traded sideways, by midday, it was confirmed with that magenta candle, and this is the effect of that, because it was calling for a move down towards the 0%, which has been rising. Still now looking for around 43.81 on that setup. This does fill some positive extremes that we had going back all the way to the 23rd. So completely consistent with expectations within that. And a lot of this stems from that. Here was that spike move that took place in the pre-market, was all positive extremes, and then we had some previous leftovers from Friday. So I was calling for that 43.39 range to be touched, and not only did we hit it, but there was plenty of supply, and then drove it even a little bit lower as we got not quite to that 44.13, which is was the next level on there that still needed to get revisited. And beautiful setups, clean from the short. Here you can see from the dot setup, none of this was a positive from a buy standpoint. Not until we get to this middle gap here at the bottom, where we started to see a turnaround of orange dipping and the complete reset of the MBI, and it started to pulse, even still a little bit slow with the white peak that came above it. So you get kind of a divergence with the magenta yellow pushing that up to the 100% right there. But as soon as the sell signal came in, which it did, we were talking about those shorts on the Skype chat, and the expectation on that when it came back down and presented a potential turnaround spot, we ended up with the spike, which was an immediate short setup to the 0%, and it turned around with a beautiful little buy towards the end of the day. But again, the spike of the white, and it's just a matter of waiting for confirmation sell, which was the white moving over, which took place right there, and boom, and you can see with all of the white candles post-market, they tried to drive it up just a little bit, unable to sustain that one, and drove it back, and then we've just seen selling and blowing back through that 44.13. That leaves you down to the 43.82 on continued sell setup right now, looking at a little bit of a turnaround configuration so far, but all in all, clean action. The volatility is only going to get worse in these particular cases, because now you've introduced a lot of unknown. Everyone's seen the articles on the bottlenecks of containers. This is going to start driving regular inflation up, because as the commodities to buy things are fewer and there's a lot of cash to buy them, people will offer a premium to them, and that drives price quickly. And it's going to be a fun one going into winter, so we're looking forward to a lot of exciting moves up and down. And a lot of these dots that you see here are from the various setups, and they'll be incorporated into the PNT 2 paint bar. That's the work that I've been doing recently. And when you see like the magenta, that's just the crossover above red, and the blue ones tend to be when we get blue pivots below the 25 level, which is up here at that white line. And that's where it became significant, when you see those spikes that are a little bit higher and you're below the 50%. That rarely goes well from an up move standpoint. So that's the beauty of being able to see these setups and incorporating them into our paint bar configurations. Just makes it easier to follow that along. And so that's exciting stuff. And as always, I will continue to update you with relevant details on the Skype chat, and a lot of good content on there, as some of the members are using some of the functions to create their own setups, which are fantastic, and just more opportunities under different scenarios to take advantage of the markets with very consistent readings that we get, combining these MBIs with the DOC, shakeout, extreme. It just all works beautifully to give us a clear picture of where things are headed. And if that daily continues to be soft, I mean, we first saw it here on that 50K, and to see it express itself so cleanly right afterwards, very nice to have that direct correlation. Just makes it easier to follow things. As always though, You can look for indicator renewals coming up because we're going to be changing out month in the middle of the week. And I will certainly be sending that out. As always, trade well. We'll talk again on the Skype chat.